Welcome, noble heroes. Welcome to another episode of Mythia. We rejoin our heroes as they have staved off, it seems, the threat from the sorcerer Pit in the City of Endless Ways. And also his creature, Zarakhan, that the characters learned last session seems, in fact, responsible for what they thought was a power of Pit's, the unlimited ability of mind control to take over the people of the city. And at the moment, Pit's whereabouts are in the wind. The characters do not know where he is, and are currently in the Adamantine Fortress with a plethora of other heroes, including the beautiful but somewhat difficult Western Fae, and the hero Ferric Moonwing, the dragon captain of the guards of Bridgewalk, and the queen Esther the White, whose ability allows her to speak with the drakes of the city. At the moment, the characters have just received their rewards for their deeds and have agreed to tentatively stick around for a feast in the city, barring the ability to go after the pirates who captured their friend might be a hero, who have taken the outrun of their ship and fled into the far seas with it. The characters were speaking in a private chamber with one another, waiting for the last of Euphemia's crew to return to her. From the city, the guards have stated that Triss is on her way, and Dom just arrived. And so the characters were discussing their next moves, and had determined that they were going to go after Hero, of course. And we're talking about stealthing their way in, grabbing Hero before the pirates were made awares of his soon-to-be rescue. And, speaking of which, noble heroes, I wanted to go ahead and thank you for joining us. Ask you to give us a like and a subscribe if you love our content, if you like what you see here. And remember, do try this at home. Let's go and get started from Hero's point of view, in fact. Might be a hero awoke. His head throbbed from the sword hit he had taken to his temple. He was in the brig. All of Isaac's stuff had been ripped from the walls and was gone. He was tied up with leather cord and held behind solid iron bars. Once he had gotten past the dizziness and pain, he tilted his head sideways to let his ear hang away, and listened to try to figure out how many sets of footsteps were on the deck above. There must be at least 5, he thought. Then his eyes opened wide when he heard huge steps. Someone heavy was coming. At first his mind raced to Potjack. But what were the chances that Potjack would be on the ship? Perhaps it wasn't as heavy as Potjack, but it was still large. As it was descending on the stairs, Hero's eyes went large as he stared at the door, fighting down his growing terror. Was he about to be beaten or tortured? In that moment he heard the doorknob rattle, and he thought about all his regrets. In that moment, the one that struck him the most in his mind in that moment was how he had treated Roland. His heart longed to apologize and see the big guy smile again. His father had been wrong. The half-elf hadn't been that hard to read after all. He just had to look past the other's feelings. Bright sunlight shone down the stairs into the brig as the lumbering shadow plodded into the room, casting him in shade. Hero flinched away from the strike, but nothing came. The voice caught him off guard as he looked up and saw the largest meek he had ever seen. His skin was a deep ocean blue with patterns of white, and he stood taller than either Isaac or Roland, and was twice as wide. His ears folded down on his massive head, and his limbs were as thick as fire logs. "This is your food," the meek said as he dropped a sparse plate of the same rations Hero had eaten for weeks. He felt a surge of relief. This must be a Shanghaied citizen of Bridgewalk. He opened his empathic abilities and startled when he felt too meek. His eyes fell to behind the huge meek's fat leg where he saw another soft golden meek, whose eyes caught him off guard with her huge expressive eyes. Round cheeks and long ears that could have easily come from a lop-eared rabbit. The three of them felt each other for a moment. "You might be a hero," The golden meek whispered in awe. She gasped and threw her hands up over her mouth. "Wow," the Goliath meek said. "I'm a big fan, I am." He tried to reach his hand through the metal bars, but couldn't manage to squeeze through. "Me mom told me the story about how you saved Gantharin, sir. It's incredible and all. A meek saving someone. Really something to bring pride to us, it is." Hero wished that they weren't meek in that moment, because they felt his embarrassment. He blushed and looked away. "I'm not that great." That's when it hit him. He would need their help if he was going to escape. Him convincing them that he was a loser and couldn't save himself at that moment wasn't going to help his cause at all. They clearly had some free reign of the ship and access to his cell. He looked up at the huge meek and tried to think, what would Roland do in this situation? That was stupid. Roland wouldn't have been captured. But if he had been, he would have Shadow help him get out, or break the locks with his hands. Okay, what would Euphemia do? She would unlock the cage in a second with her fate. Juniper? Never mind. What should he do? "What's your name there, big guy?" he asked the huge meek. The giant's face lit up when he asked. "I'm is big." He blurted out almost too loudly. Hero shushed him, and he mimicked the gesture back. He lowered his eyes to the beautiful meek at Isbig's knee. She hesitated, then spoke softly. "I'm looks like a rabbit." "All right, good to meet you two. Are you expected back up there very soon?" Hero asked as he nodded upwards. "In a minute or so." "Why?" Looks like a rabbit said. Hero affected a smile filled with false confidence. He was a far superior empath to the two of them and sent a deceptive wave of emotions to cover for his fear. "'Cause I think I have a plan of how to take the ship. And I want to know if you all have enough time for me to explain it to you." Hero had clearly convinced them that he was the hero his name guessed he was, as their faces filled with awe and excitement. Fake it till you make it, he thought to himself. Here we go.
Incredible.
I love Hero so much.
We begin with the characters filling a lavish chamber, one of the few in the Adamantine Fortress, and speaking of their next plans. You all had just got finished discussing how you were going to assault the Outrunner if you found it again soon. And it looks as though a knock comes to the door. You see Zarafen's immediate annoyance, imagining it to be Western again. "I've got it," he says as he stands up and heads to the door, a slightly rough canter to his step. He's going to open the door, and you see him assume a much more pleasant stance in himself. "Can I help you?" he says to whoever's beyond the door. And you hear, "It's me." Triss's voice comes through the doorway. He's going to open, and you see a guard standing in front of Triss. And Triss is going to sort of step past the guard and enter the room. As soon as she does, you're going to see a woman on a mission in Triss. As soon as she steps inside, you see her eyes look up and sweep the room and immediately lock on to Jania first and then Euphemia second. She is going to... You watch as a flood of emotions, more than the tide of the sea, washes over Triss's face. At first, you see a sort of desperation in her features, and then an immediate drop into a vulnerability that you do not often see on the giant woman. In her shyness, she is very often hesitant to show much emotion at all. But her face breaks, and she begins to scrunch up in a sort of ugly cry as she rushes towards you, almost hazardly, as she's going to pick you up out of the chair and say, "By the sea, Captain, you're all right!" she says as she spins you around.
Yuffie's going to very awkwardly try to, reach around to pat her back a little bit. She's probably, choking her a bit.
She whisks up Jania in her other arm, and you see her sort of lean like a dog against pleased against its master on Dom's beard and head, and he kind of like he sort of like vaguely pats the side of her. She squeezes you tight enough for there to be a moment of panic before she drops you down again, and then she is going to sort of kneel and slap the ground in rousing joy. She says, "I saw the ship go. I heard about you in Potjack," she said. "I thought you were dead, Captain."
I almost was. I thought all of you could have been dead, too. You don't know how relieving it is to see everyone here whole.
Big, heavy tears are going to be falling down her face. You don't need your fate to see into her at that moment. She is very clearly ecstatic for you to be alive, and there is something new in her eyes, a sort of appreciative light that you did not see there beforehand. You think perhaps something has changed in her.
Any insight into what?
Give me an insight check with advantage.
Neither of them were a 1. But...
DC 13.
Oh my gosh, I just make it. 13.
Nice. You have often seen people change their feelings towards something that they almost lose. You think the same is happening in Triss. She's going to look over and give Dom the same treatment, and as she picks him up, Zarfan is going to sit, and he looks across the table. So, what's next? He is going to explicitly look towards Juniper first and then Roland second.
Well, as soon as we get word, of course, we'll go find Hero, which will be the most important task at the moment. But until that happens, I think we should regroup.
I agree, Zarfan says.
I suppose all we can do is lick our wounds for now. Get ready to get engaged in fights again. We're taking the Outrunner back, no matter how much blood needs to be spilled.
Isaac, do you have any response to what's happening at the table?
He's sitting there looking pensive, but he doesn't have anything to say at the moment.
Prongor is going to sort of lean over, and you see him elbow you a little bit to try to get you to get your 2 cents in there.
Oh.
Prongor, often in meetings with other nobles, if you would daydream off in the boring day-to-day antics, he would make sure to remind you to assert yourself and as dominant as possible in the room.
Isaac will suddenly kind of like sit up straight, and he leans and puts both elbows on the table and says, "It is absolutely killing me not knowing what they're doing to the ship and what they're doing to my things in the brig."
Yuffie looked kind of like surprised at the first part of that statement, and then at the second part, her face just kind of is like, oh, of course.
And then he leans back again and he says, "I cannot wait for those drakes to get back."
Speaking of which, how are we going to transport Phalor? Zarfan asks you.
Well, if Prongor still has his bag, I have a compartment for him in there. It shouldn't be an issue.
You have a secret bag compartment.
Is that Zarfan asking that?
Yes.
You could call it that, but it's more like we're taking his bones and shoving him in the very bottom.
Juniper, you know that Zarfan already knew about the secret compartment and is surprised that Isaac was willing to admit it to the group.
June gives him a vaguely smug look that most people would probably just think it was just, a pleasant smile. Rafe completely knows she's being smug.
Well, I think that if we're licking our wounds, then Pitt certainly is licking his, he says. I think he won't attack, at least for the night. If he was going to attack, he would have already done so. Night's already fallen.
How do you know? We weren't expecting the attack that he so successfully carried out.
Because a guard would be here to knock on our door, he says. If there was Zarakan going through the city.
I do think it would be wise to find the actual stone that he used, if possible still.
I agree.
He can't use it in the future.
Perhaps that could be a job for you and I.
Indeed.
Out of game. Can I bring up the letter yet, or no?
You can do whatever you want.
Okay.
No, you're not allowed to roleplay. Never. Shame on you.
I don't like to interfere if somebody's got plans for something.
How would you
Jeez.
know if we have plans for things?
You always have plans. I just don't know if they're
Well, yes, so then what's it matter if you interfere with them?
fine. Okay, so Yuffie would say, I do have something I need to discuss with the crew.
Well, then perhaps we might vacate the room so you can make use of it, Zarfin says.
She nods.
Dom's going to kind of look over. And you could go a little bit away, perhaps down the hall, he says, a little bit mockingly towards Zarfin. I'm sure we can.
Are we crew? Or...
You all can decide if you want to stay or not. She's not going to kick you out, but it's up to you.
You've never implied that we were technically crew, so June is going to assume that you're not including her.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Roland would get up and leave, too.
We're not crew, we're passengers on her ship.
Does Isaac stand?
Yeah.
Okay, Prongor is clearly sitting, waiting for the information, and then is going to see you stand up and is like, oh! And he gets up as well and sort of follows after you. Triss, Jania, Dom, and Bali. And Klebe is not here. He and Walks are just outside in another nearby room, amidst an unknown pillow fort at that moment.
Yuffie will pull out the really battered letter, like it's been through hell just as much as she has, and hand it over to Dom to read.
As you hand it across the table, you're going to hear I would say, a uncharacteristic sniffle from Triss as she wipes the last of the tears from her eyes, but can't quite get rid of the red.
Yuffie gives her a little bit of a soft smile.
Jania is sort of patting her shoulder, and Bali is sort of rubbing her arm from the other side of her. She's quietly cooing that you're okay.
Yuffie says, I got this letter from Ronan. I'm afraid in all of the chaos that ensued, I didn't have a moment to share it with you.
Dom is going to take it, and he will look down at the letter. He reads it carefully, schooling his features, and then is going to hand it over towards Bali. She's going to hold it for the other two as well, and the three of them take a look over it. Triss is going to kind of smile sheepishly and say, such cursive, she says, clearly having difficulty reading the letter. Jania is going to say, what does it say? To Bali. Bali's going to kind of look at her and go, you can read? I'm trying to go fast, she says. Bali clearly, remembers the book club that you all have and how Jania is always taking a week or two longer to read through any of the literature, despite her having more time to do so. She's going to explain it, and Jania is going to say, so how does our little adventure today fit into all this? She says, Bali's going to kind of look over, what adventure?
Sorry.
I don't think I mentioned that part yet.
Triss is going to start and look over.
She looks a little flustered.
What's a puppy?
Triss is going to look over at you, sort of wide-eyed. You hadn't told him, Captain?
No.
Told us what? Dom asks.
I Johnny and I got into it with Marjorie and the majority of her crew in the, and then she names the bar.
The Sullied Shell.
Thank you.
Got into it, Dom says. What happened? Bali asks, alarmed.
Well, she looks at Johnny, a little unsure.
We f***ing killed him, she says.
We did.
You're going to see Dom sort of like... You don't often see Dom express, like, disbelief at something, but you're definitely going to see him express disbelief at this. Triss is going to say, I heard about it. The guards found her corpse, she said, hanging from a bridge.
Hanging from a bridge?
So Potjack sort of snapped her neck, and then, like, as you all jumped away, the bridge probably bounced, and her body sort of half slid off the bridge, putting her in a rather awkward hanging pose.
That mental picture is awful.
You know, I'm starting to understand why more and more Astrid's just kind of pissed at you right now.
It's fair. She says, well, honestly, I think we were more getting our asses kicked until Potjack showed up.
Potjack showed up? Dom says.
It wasn't really Potjack.
Potjack?
She waits. It's complicated.
I heard it was Potjack, Captain, Triss says. What?
It was Potjack, but it wasn't Potjack.
It wasn't Potjack? Johnny asks.
It was Pitt, she says.
Pitt's really big, Johnny says. I didn't know he was an ogre.
I'm glad we left.
Are you, though?
Euphemia says, no. What I mean is...
Was it Pitt or Potjack? Dom asks.
It was Potjack's body, but Pitt was controlling his mind.
Everybody is at once going to go, oh.
She says, unfortunately, that caused problems later. But a lot of her crew and Marjorie herself were killed. And it was implied that there was quite a handsome reward for our heads. I suspect that's the big reason they decided to ambush us.
You're going to see Dom kind of like a sort of darkness overtakes his mood. And he sort of looks down and you see him sort of considering, and a little bit of a growly mumble is going to escape just below audible level. Johnny is going to like, let me tell you guys, Captain was so cool, she says as she looks over. Volley's going to kind of smile sweetly and then look over at you. Triss is going to like, they're sort of going to fangirl out. Triss is going to look over and she's like, what happened? And Johnny is like, I went like this, and Captain jumped, and she got through 6 guys. And they tried to all swing their swords at once, and all of them missed, she says. It was like a cage of swords. She says like it's the coolest thing ever.
Yuffie looks at Volley with this sort of, what else did I expect expression.
You're such a poet, Johnny. Thanks, she says towards Volley.
But it is going to complicate things. If we have a large price on our heads, we're going to have to be more circumspect on where we go.
On that topic, Dom says.
You look like you have some thoughts, she says.
Don't get me wrong. Marjorie needed to go.
Marjorie was a monster.
All of them are. The question is, if we're going to be traveling about the entire continent, we can't keep it from them much longer, what we're doing.
I know.
And things keep getting in the way of a long span of time to tell them, or an appropriate time. We may just need to come right out with it. Ronan has put his trust in you, he says, kind of holding up the letter as evidence.
Yuffie will say, Ronan has put his trust in all of us. And I'm afraid with the mission to save fate, it's taking all of my will and focus just to work with this team, to try to correct what's going wrong with fate. And in the process, there are pieces moving in the background that I've lost. I'm afraid I've not paid close enough attention.
Polly's going to look up. I think we can trust them. Captain, if you can take out a pirate lord by yourself, imagine what you could have done with all of them. With all of us. We could take on the whole fleet.
I think that's exactly what we're going to end up doing.
We
I agree.
need not to abuse this relationship. We can only take on things that are ahead of us, Tom says.
She nods.
Roland already has put off going back to Brightstock to try to help out that hero, Stonewolf. He clearly cared about it. If he's willing to put off such a mission, something important like that, we can't be sending us off on wild goose chases after the pirate lords. Otherwise, there might be some resentment, Dom suggests.
Sometimes I forget how thoughtful you are.
Sometimes I forget, he says as he strokes his beard. Bolly's going to look over, and you will see a sort of newfound light and excitement in her eyes, in addition to Triss. But that's one of them, she says. We're on the way. It's sort of half disbelieving. Hell yeah, we are. Or she says, by the pits we are, Jania says, as she looks over and sort of smacks Bolly on the shoulder. Ow. Bolly sort of rubs her shoulder.
It is one down. And we are gaining more powerful allies. And I agree with you, Bolly. I do think we can trust these people.
Who heads outside the fortress first?
I guess Rafe and June.
Rafe and June. Roland, you encounter Western as soon as you head outside into the hallway. Jennifer, as you're walking through the hallway, you and Rafe are speaking quietly about where Pitt might hide the stone. Annalise is right behind the two of you and is going to come up along, marching as a trio together. Where are you two headed? She says.
Out to seek the stone that Pitt was using to send out the signal.
I have a couple ideas on that. You mind if I tag along?
Of course.
Zarfan's going to look over. He says, so, pretty big day, huh? Towards nobody in particular.
Yeah, you could say that. June lets out a heavy sigh, though. She glances around. Is there anybody about other than us three?
There are some guards moving back and forth. A few servants with preparations being made. Annalise is going to say, if it's a big day for her, you know it was huge for me. You're going to hear something then. Distant booms.
Booms?
Yes. You'll see Zarafan sort of turn his head, listening blindly to the air.
Can you make it out?
I think I know what it is. He says, as you take a couple more steps towards the door, looking outside, you're going to see a brilliant explosion of fireworks out in Bridgewalk proper.
Huh.
The explosions of color ignite over the city, shining down on the hundreds of bridges down below, and what appear to be crowds on them. Is this all for us? Zarafan says as he looks out over the grander city. Can't be, Annalise says.
It's a celebration of life. Why would it be for us?
I don't know. Might make it difficult to look for the stone, though. He says a little bit cheekily.
Indeed.
Perhaps a walk?
How about we go home?
He nods. Home? Annalise says. Your house?
Yes.
I think I'll stick around the fortress then, she says.
She raises an eyebrow slightly, but smiles and goes, "You're awful!
Wait, what did you just do?
Awful! Where are you sitting? I'm gonna kick you." I mean, probably, but stop it!
Just please don't roleplay that part.
No, we're gonna do that in explicit detail.
Thank
just
you
for
for not.
funsies.
I mean, I assumed not.
As Jennifer goes to head out the fortress, you're going to hear a voice behind you. Godmother. You turn around and see Queen Estrid, alone.
Your Majesty.
I was hoping to speak with you in private.
She glances over at Rafe and she goes, "I'll meet you there."
You're going to see a small slip of a smile on his face as he turns and heads out the fortress doorway. Annalise is going to sort of look between you all, give a quick bow towards the Queen. I assume you didn't mean me. Queen Estrid is going to nod that she is correct, and Annalise is going to excuse herself from the situation. As the Queen is going to head down the hallway,
Valinda step beside her.
you're going to see that there is a drake sigil, looks like it's made out of gold and bronze, on the wall, and she's going to place her hand on it and whisper a word that appears to be from the language of drakes, a sort of guttural growl. The sigil is going to, it looks to be maybe slightly warm or glowing, and then it'll fade away into a doorway, and she is going to walk inside. A few torches are going to ignite with a on the walls, and you're going to find yourself in a rather private chamber. Some kind of safe room.
She is quietly just glancing around, but she's just waiting currently.
She's going to gesture you to step inside.
Oh, she does.
The wall is going to appear behind you, seeming to fade into existence. It has been perhaps 10 years since anyone has come in this room with me, she says.
Have you ever been in this room?
Yes.
Okay. Has it changed?
No.
Okay.
I've never seen anything like what you did today,
I'm not terribly surprised.
but I have heard of it. She's going to turn, and as she walks to the back walls, you're going to see dimly illuminated bookshelves. There are probably several thousand books, slim things, bound in aged leather, kept meticulously undusty. These are the journals of every winter child, all the way back to the very beginning.
She just nods.
While the fate gives us much of the knowledge we need to rule, the history, the experience, is found here, in this place.
By glancing at it, can I tell exactly how far it goes?
Back to the beginning.
Have you read them all?
Meticulously.
She smiles.
I think you're mentioned in several of them.
I believe I was.
Then you're the same, she says. Thank you for protecting us.
Bridgewalk holds a special place in my heart.
Anything you need, you'll find an ally here.
Glad to hear it.
Why hide yourself?
If you recognize me, you would realize how long my life has been. Thus, you would realize how many enemies I might have made.
Would they not all be dead?
The
With
ones
what you
that
did today, you think their hearts would merely stop?
the ones that I fear, the ones that I worry about, no, they wouldn't be dead.
The alien, then?
Some.
I heard rumors that some have escaped the alien. Are those true?
Unfortunately, yes.
Do we know who?
Yes. Ace. Which other ones? I forgot their names.
Zio?
Is it just Ace and Zio that I know for sure?
That you know, yeah.
That I know for sure? Ace and Zio.
I've just gotten reports. The ilium still flies quietly. It is nearing Alirna at this moment. It'll be another 2 months before it reaches us again. You know that the ilium orbits about the continent in a circle, moving north and then south.
At some point, yes, I intended to check in on that. I haven't heard any more updates yet, unfortunately. Either fortunately or unfortunately, depending on the information I get.
I have a question, asked not by me, but by this. She says, pointing at a specific section of meticulously well-kept diaries.
Can I guess about where it is?
Yeah, you would guess that's about the end of the Age of Magic.
She looks at her and goes, I may or may not answer, but you may ask.
The 13 days. Was that you?
Define your question.
It was theorized there was a battle. Something that affected us. Are we in such a time again?
It is different this time.
Worse or better?
I don't know. Possibly worse.
What can I do to prepare?
She sighs, looks down. She glances around. Are there any chairs in here?
Yes, there are. Large, leather-bound chairs.
Any that are close enough to chat in?
Mm-hmm.
She gestures and has a seat. Prepare for the worst. Bridgewalk is governed by fate. Much of it is.
What are you saying?
Fate will slowly fade, unless we can find a way to fix it. Find out what did this. I have theories, but they are purely conjecture now.
As she asks some detailed questions, some that you cannot answer, at the end, she is going to look towards you, seriously, with a face of stone. I want you to know, I've never been more impressed in my life. It was only because of fate that I was able to school my features. I think I understand why you hide.
June's expression, she allows it to be vaguely pained for just a moment, and then she smooths it over again and smiles quietly. Yes. It can be difficult.
As I said, whatever you need. We will work to restore the drakery.
I would ask that you keep what you have learned here to yourself, even among your counselors. It will put them in danger.
She nods.
Normally I require a fate oath, but considering the circumstances.
All right. Western is going to approach Roland as soon as you are out. You'll never believe what's happening. Come, she says as she grabs your arm.
What is it?
Date!
She says, the Holy Patrol is here.
Oh, no way.
She says, the people are rejoicing. Come on. She grabs your arm and pulls you.
Oh, yeah, he goes with her.
As you head out into the streets, you're going to see Zarafen sort of take off in the other direction as Western turns and sort of gives him like a scrunched face. And then is going to look up. I love fireworks, especially when they're for me, she says.
He rolls his eyes really hard.
She says, here, come. She pulls on your arm and you go over and you see on one of the main thoroughfare bridges down below in the moonlight, you will see that there is a bit of clouds rolling in from the ocean. Looks like there might be a storm soon by the breeze picking up. You will see a line of well-armored paladins headed in groups of 3, hundreds long. You think that the people of Bridgewalk might consider that they have been secured by this extra robust force that has come in.
Only these guys could have showed up yesterday.
She says, I know, their timing is terrible, but still, at least that puts a lot of weight off our shoulders, she says.
Yeah, I don't think Pitt's going to strike here again, though.
I love it when the cavalry arrives, she says, not even having heard you. She goes, so, with that happening, it looks like the people are giving out free drinks. You want to go cash in?
Would you like to get some to eat?
She's going to kind of look at you. Yes.
Me and Bali were on our way to get food earlier, and then this all happened, and
Which one's Bali? Is that the one with the bandana?
the little one, yeah.
Oh, okay.
She
nods.
She doesn't have the bandana, but she
Well,
had
she
your
did have a
bandana at one
bandana.
point, yeah.
She did at one
Did have a
point.
bandana.
She didn't wear it.
Could
Well,
lead
he
to
says
mass
the little one,
confusion.
and she says, or he goes like that, and she says the little one's bandana, and he goes, no, the other one.
She goes, oh, the one with the hand.
No.
Am I
Let's
getting
just-
them confused?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
They don't all look alike. And then he's gonna start walking away, and then turns like, "You coming?"
She quickly goes to catch up with you, and she sort of like, you can tell that she's put on a separate pair of shoes in the interim, and she sort of like stumbles a little bit on the shoes as she rushes to catch up with you.
Out of game. She's Selenox, right?
She is from the Diamond Street, which is outside of Selenox.
Okay.
But yes, she originally is from Selenox.
Okay, so she's from the suburbs of Selenox.
She is on the like an outskirt town.
Explains
Yeah.
a whole lot.
The white flight area of the most of the richest area. Nice.
She's actually from a not rich area.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Golden Hills, where Isaac was from, are the richest area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Isn't she?
Her
from-
family was put out from there.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right.
They're poor now,
That's
but
right.
they are nobles.
Not poor.
They were nobles, weren't they?
They are noble.
But weren't they? They were like,
But
They were
fallen.
the noble.
and then because it didn't. I'm trying to think. Didn't we talked about this? She's like part of all the pressure on her is that she was supposed to reestablish her family's name or whatever.
Yeah, you know none of that.
We talked
Yeah.
about this
She
when I
knows
was
that.
digging around, and
Yeah, we talked. I'm just trying to put together like things about her before I have to eat dinner with her. things that Roland knows about her over the
over the years of
almost
like
decade of knowing her and disliking her.
As you all walk in, she goes, that place is rather crowded, she says, looking at a bustling tavern that has the lamps lit. There is a huge crowd of varied people spilling out of the main tavern itself out into the stone benches and tables outside, where they appear to be consuming ample amounts of pub food.
You want to find someplace smaller?
More, yes, intimate maybe, she says.
He rolls his eyes a little bit. So okay with that.
Better tell her what you're doing.
She is going to step out into a four-way street and look down. She goes, "What about that place? The owner's standing outside welcoming people. That's friendly."
Yeah, sure.
As you head over towards them, you see a human man who is standing, and he has a fine sort of gourmet attire on, and he's going to, "Oh, please, please," and then he sees, are you covered or anything like that? Okay. He goes, "A lovely lady and her fellow out for the night stroll. Come, come," he says, "food is on the house tonight. We are free of terror." As you step inside, Western's going to ask, "Is everybody offering free plates tonight?" "Oh, yes, of course, free plates and drinks, heroes all around." He says, "You never know when one's going to come in the house." You know? He gives a little point towards you. Western is going to offer for him to kind of take her coat. And as she pulls it off, you see that she has this sort of sleeveless strap. It almost is a corset, but has a little less leather and a little more cloth on it. But certainly is something that you wouldn't wear to fight in.
Bodice.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with bodice.
And certainly has enough cleavage for everybody in the house. As the family of the chef, the man who offered you the free food, is going to immediately sort of surround you and overwhelm you with polite attention to your table. Although there are a couple other people inside, it's clear from at least her attire that you both are quite wealthy. And as you sit, she's going to say, "So, which way are you all headed? I was rudely shut out of the room."
One of the kids from our team got taken in the raid, so we're gonna try to rescue him.
"The bird boy?
The little meek.
There was a meek?"
Yeah, I guess you might not have even met him.
She goes,
It's on the boat the whole time, right?
"Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. He's tough, though. He'll be alright.
Shall I come?"
Do you want to?
"I don't know. How far away is it?"
I think we're gonna have to go out to sea for it.
"Oh, I am terrible at sea," she says.
It's up to you. Do you have any plans after this?
"Well, vague ideas of plans.
Are you going to Garen for the tournament?
I will be back in time."
I hope we are.
She says, "How could you not be there? The expectations are insane."
We're on this mission, and I don't know how long it's going to take.
"Well, dear, you always need to be networking," she says. She sort of puts her hand on yours. She says, "There are plenty of strong arms that are going to show up to the tournament, people that could help."
I mean, that's the idea, so we can make it back, but we got to pick him up, and there's some other things we got to attend to out here.
Could you imagine you and I entering into the city together and everybody cheering us as we head to the tournament?
I'm sure you could.
She says, she's going to kind of like smack you lightly on the head and says, "Sometimes you're such a dullard. Can't you imagine things?"
Yeah, I miss home, though.
She says, "How is your family doing?"
Seemingly same as usual, but I don't know.
"Your family works much too hard for having you as a son," she says. "They really need to take the easy life. Take some of those sponsorships and give them the coin."
It's not, they wouldn't want it.
Oh, they really secretly do.
I assure you they don't.
Well, of course they're going to say that. They don't want to be hangers-on, she says. But they allowed your two sisters to become mercenaries. I'm sure they make good money too.
Yeah, and they blow it all.
She says,
I don't think any of them, they're still eating. They still don't pay for food when they're home.
they really need to learn some discipline, she says, as ironically as possible.
So my twin sister's acts older than they do.
She says, so when did your family know who you were going to be? I would say my family knew right up front.
You know, I really don't know. We've never really talked about it. They always knew that whenever they did have a boy, he was going to be important, but I don't know. I think it always kind of freaked my mom out, knowing what my fate was.
You know, when I was 5, my mother dropped this little whisk on the ground where we were cooking together. Had a little sharpened point on the end, and I picked it up and flipped it around with all the grace of a dancer, and she knew right then and there that I was going to be special. That was my first sword. She smiles a little bit at the memory.
How's your family doing?
Oh, you know. Troublesome as always.
When's the last time you went home?
Oh dear, let's not get on that topic. Let's talk about something fun, she says. What are you going to do when you catch up to those pirates who stole your boy?
You know, I don't really thinking about that. I just hope he's okay.
Are you still leaving them alive?
When I can.
I don't understand. You trained under Harper. Why can't you get through this hang-up? Leaving your enemies alive is a foolish waste. You get stupid revenge plots that people go to insane lengths to try to capture your family and torture them. It's terrible.
As long as somebody's alive, they have the ability to change.
That's both why you're wonderful and incredibly stupid, Roland. She's going to smile like it was half a joke, but you know that it wasn't entirely one.
You know, I don't know where Juniper went after all this. I don't know where we're sleeping tonight. Are there enough rooms at the
fortress?
The fortress?
There are plenty of rooms in the fortress.
I don't want to impose, but
where's Shadow?
I feel like everybody just...
Is she in my shadow again? Are you all trying to prank me?
No, she's resting.
She nods. All right, I'm going to trust your word on that. But if you leave your enemy alive and still prank me after you say that, you are a liar forever. Your food is brought, and the two of you talk vaguely on nothings for a while. Before, as the wife of the establishment is going to come out. A lovely dessert for the lovely couple, she says. And you're going to see Western sort of blush and vaguely put her hand on the side of her chin. Oh, well, thank you so much, she says. She seems totally fine with them assuming. She's going to, after your retort, the woman is going to place a single fork down. Well, I'll start, she says, as she picks up the fork. She's going to eat specifically the part with the cherry on the top and then leave the rest for you.
Of course.
I'm just picturing there's like a cake or something like this and the cherry's right here, so she just ate the circle out of the center.
Perfect.
If Euphemia is staying in the fortress, Roland would try to find her before going to sleep that night.
Remind me.
But if she's not staying at the fortress,
I imagine that probably we all would.
It makes sense.
She's going home.
She's going home. By the way, I do hope you tell us at some point and we don't just have to assume you're missing and then freak out. Oh, God.
Master, do you have any concerns about tomorrow?
Tomorrow? What is it you were thinking of?
The flying portion, Master. Even if they do find the Outrunner, we're going to have to fly there. You don't have flight sickness, do you? That Bumblebee Drake thing was certainly a terrible experience.
I think I'll be fine in our pursuit of the Outrunner, Prongor, but I'm more worried about you. Do you have any sort of fear of heights that I need to know about?
You don't know this, Master, in fact, but when I was very young, I was a deck boy, and I climbed up the mast as Cleby does now with sturdy, 2 arms, and watched from the upper crow's deck. So no, I have no difficulty with any heights.
That's good to know. But to answer you, no, I don't have any reservations about it. I just feel anxious to get it done.
Excellent, he says. I do as well. I feel a swelling excitement for the sheer death of our foes.
He and Western would get on well.
Isaac will... so where are they right now? Are they just walking through the city?
You're walking through the fortress at the moment, yes. Okay. In fact, you are going to suddenly hear, Isaac, wait up, from Dom behind you.
Okay, Isaac will stop and turn around.
I was hoping to speak with you, he says.
Dom, is everything alright?
He says, yes, everybody appears to have split off, and I realized that I had a question remaining that I wanted to talk to you about.
I see. Well, hopefully I can be of some help.
Are you aware of an individual within Bridgewalk by the name of the Watchmaker?
The Watchmaker?
You may roll a DC 18 history check with advantage.
Daniel, is that not the shopkeeper I worked with a long time ago?
It is not.
Okay. You said history?
Yes.
You said 18, right?
With advantage.
Okay, I rolled an 18 exactly.
All right. You have heard of a underworld contact of some ill repute here in the city. One by the moniker the Watchmaker. Apparently a rather stoic, deathly looking man who runs a clock shop here in the city somewhere. Although you've never personally dealt with them, you've heard of people who have.
Okay. Isaac will ponder for a moment and then say, why, yes, I believe I have heard of such an individual. Why do you bring him up? He does not seem like someone that would interest you.
Dom is going to sort of raise his eyebrows slightly. You think me much too innocent, Isaac.
Perhaps I do.
Dude, he's a pirate.
He's going to sort of lean in towards you conspiratorially and say, you seem to be under the impression that I was always a good man.
I have to admit that I was. You are quite charming as you are now. I never would have guessed that you had any sort of shady history behind you.
Isn't that the point? He says, smiling.
I suppose so. And you had me fooled.
Do you have the spell, Detect Poison?
Isaac will think for a moment and then say, I could whip it up for you.
I would appreciate you casting it. Now.
Now? On what?
Me.
Okay. Isaac will pull out a satchel which has some like powder in it, and he'll start preparing the spell.
You're going to
Cast it
see,
on Dom.
as you sort of lean down to get the satchel, Dom is sort of like, not Dom, Prongor is sort of like narrow-eyed glancing at Prongor with some manner of suspicion.
Dom is glancing at Prongor, you said?
Sorry, Prongor is glancing at Dom. I misspoke.
Gotcha, okay.
Prongor is going to say, "You could have been poisoned," he says. "It's possible." Dom says, nodding. "I would like to make sure." You pull out the ingredients.
I do.
You cast the spell?
I have the spell prepped, and then I say, Dom, I'm curious, when and where do you think you were poisoned today?
Dom is going to sort of lean into you to where it's almost so close that Prongor couldn't hear. He's going to say, "I'm pretty sure the both of us always wonder where we've been, where we could have been poisoned."
Isaac will lean back. And for a moment he thinks that maybe Dom is still being possessed by Pip, but then he shakes that away knowing it's likely impossible, given what June did.
Do you cast the spell?
I cast the spell.
And we will go ahead and call the session there, noble heroes. Do remember, please give us a like and a subscribe. And hit the bell icon for notifications. Comment down below. Let us know what you thought about this episode. And do try this at home. Thank you, guys.